You are now tuned in to Hot Topics with Donna. And on this show, we do one thing: keep it real hot. That's honest, open, and transparent. If you didn't know, now you know. So sit back and unwind as we bring the vibe and a little bit of glorious sunshine to your heart, soul, and mind. Your lovely host, Hot Donna, will be with you in just a few moments. But while you wait, go ahead and set an atmosphere of peace in your space. If you can, cut the lights down low, get your hydration on, vibration zone. Cause tonight, you're about to receive some delicious food for your soul. Are you ready? 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 It's about to get hot. You are indeed in the one and only place to be this evening. We appreciate you for joining us, and in just a few moments, we about to turn the heat all the way up. That's right. It's about to go down right now on Hot Topics with Donna. Show your virtual love by smashing that thumbs up and heart icon as many times as you can. And without further ado, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing your host, the one and only Hot Donna.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Hot Topics with Donna. I am your host, Donna Taylor. And for those of you that don't know, HOT stands for honest, open, and transparent. And you know, we always keep it hot here. So tonight is going to be no different. But I am, like I told you guys, we'll be giving away a free book, and I will autograph it and send it to you free of charge. So this is my book, An Imperfect Marriage Saved by Grace. I'm going to send this to you, and me and my sister will decide who's going to get this book tonight. But someone be getting a free book tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her on, and we're just going to get started. I hope you guys have a day. I hope you had a great day. Let's continue to keep those ones that was affected by the storm in our
Hey, sis.
hello. And because we have really been fortunate, but some wasn't so fortunate. So let's just keep them in prayer. Some of them have lost everything that they own, everything. So let's just keep them uplifted. And if you can donate, I know a lot of people are taking up stuff. Let's donate. I know my school has got involved, and so they got a big U-Haul in front of our school taking up supplies. So let's just, make sure we're doing our part, and people complaining because we don't have water on the shelves and all this other stuff. But guys, we are still warm in our homes. We still can go in our refrigerators and get food, but they cannot. So if there's no water, no toilet paper, or everything that you may need, hey, they're trying to help people just survive with the daily essentials that we have. We still have a bathroom to go to. We still can open our door and walk out. Some people have lost everything. So let's just be mindful when we go in these stores and stop murmuring and complaining about there's no stuff on the shelf, because people are hurting. They're truly hurting. So we just got to be thankful that we still can just cut on lights. I mean, look, the houses like going down River Stream, wherever they're going.
Washed away.
Wow. I mean, but God will still restore. But guys, please just be mindful how you start complaining. That's all I ask. Just be mindful how we complain. They're trying to rebuild. They have to rebuild. and some people are still not accounted for. So for that, we should be thankful in itself. So I just needed to get that off my heart because it's just been on my heart because we got to stop this complaining. You know, we should already have these essentials anyway. You know, we shouldn't wait till the last minute to go get tissue if we need it. But today, my sister and I is going to be talking about mm, people pleasing, the effects, common habits of people pleasing, how to stop it. And so, how are you today, my sister?
Girl, it's been a week. And again, you don't want to complain because again, there's people out there that have it way much worse than you. But it's been a week. It's been a week.
Good.
Um,
So, tell us about you had a show this weekend, past weekend.
mhm.
How did that go?
Winston-Salem Fashion Week. Oh my God, it was
Yeah.
great. So they usually have a 3-day show from Friday to Sunday, but this time it was just a 2-day show, so that's not a bad thing. But we had 2 separate shows and 2 different locations on
Mm-hmm.
Saturday. Friday we were at the Truist, and I got to walk for Hanes, which I thought was pretty cool. And then Saturday afternoon, I got to walk for Bella Couture, and I got to post a picture of that. And then on Saturday night, I got to walk for Gisani and Body and Soul. And I'm gonna tell you, the struggle is real because I literally have no room on my phone.
Ah, well.
So, and of course, life has been crazy. So I have not had a chance to like sit and maybe remove some pictures and videos to
Mm-hmm.
different places. And I just don't have any room to post.
So, do you have an iPhone?
No, I don't speak I speak droid.
Well, the reason why I was asking, and you might can do it with any phone,
Hey,
isn't
Queen.
there a way that you can like create folders and put the pictures in a folder and not have them in your
I can try,
or
but
look in
like,
your phone, go to your pictures and your pictures, because I had to do this with my phone and see if it tells you if you have duplicates of a picture. And if you do, it'll allow you to merge it together, you know, because
oh,
I did that. And um hey love, I
I miss
did that and it allowed me
Tasha.
to merge the pictures that I had duplicates of.
Hmm. I literally
So
have
yeah.
so I literally have no room on my phone. Like it's like even my text messages, it's telling me too much. I'm like,
Mm.
girl, I'm sitting there deleting all the junk texts and the stores that send you, their text alerts and all this. Like I literally have no room on my phone right
But you know
now.
you can email them to yourself.
I could. I had to, matter of fact, in one of my emails, I had to buy more storage. It's a
Yeah,
lot.
you can. Yeah, you can email them or send them to your messenger. But then you don't want
Hmm.
to do that because if you don't want to lose those. But yeah, I would email them. That's what I would do. I would just send an email and create me a folder that way.
The struggle is real. I
Yeah.
again, even that takes time. And when I do have Dropbox, I do pay for that. I gotta dump it there. But you know what makes it hard about Dropbox or when it's not in your phone? Because I'm constantly posting, right?
Okay.
It
Yeah.
doesn't make it easy for you to post into the platforms from, let's say, Dropbox or
Mm-hmm.
even Google Photos. So you have to then re-download the photo so that you can then post it as a story or a post on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. That's what makes it hard for me. So, and that's one of the reasons why in a way, I don't. So what I do is whatever is really old that I know I'm not going to repost, then I'll move those to Dropbox or
Okay.
Google Photos. But given the current season of everything has been happening so fast, I feel like I need the content on my phone so that I can repost. But
Right.
I'm telling
Right.
you, and I don't have time, Queen. I don't have time. Like for me to sift through this dang on phone with all these photos, it takes hours, and I don't have hours.
I really don't.
You gotta do a little. You gotta do a little bit at a time. You just gotta
A
do a
little
little bit
bit at a
at
time.
a time.
Yeah. So it's such a pain. It really is a pain. Like I have content from like early September, man, August, that I have to post,
Wow.
that I just not have had a chance to just share the content because it's just
Sure.
either sitting on my
Yeah.
phone or like a movie that I did with Denitra,
Right.
Anima. Normally I do like a little reel of the video. I don't have the room to even do that. You know,
Dang.
like
Now,
it's
can you
I don't have
have
room.
more storage on your phone?
You know, I didn't think about it. Buying some more storage. Hmm. Didn't think about it. Didn't think about it. But
Yeah.
I'm over. You know, but I am paying for Dropbox, and I even paid Google a little more, so for more storage. So again, I gotta just sift through the old stuff, move all that over there so that I can make room. And then of course I think the videos that I have on my phone is what's consuming most of it
Yeah. Yeah.
at this point.
And you know, you can send those to your messenger because I know messenger. It doesn't matter how big it is.
Really?
Yeah. Because if I do a video somewhere and I try to send it to somebody, like even when I try to send a cheer video,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's too long, I'll go straight to, I'll send it straight to the messenger, and then they able to get it that way. Hey,
Yeah, but then if you lose your, but think about it. Hi, Shirley. But if you lose your Facebook, you know, because
yeah, yeah,
then you lose.
you gonna be
Nah,
show.
I'm good. Nah, I'm good. Mm-mm,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
So we're gonna talk, and I think you and I started talking about people pleasing last
You
week.
did.
And so before me and you even ever started talking about this, I be at work and I have all this time to think, and and I just think and I look at our students, and a lot of times that's where I get my inspiration from because I see them as high schoolers and they're so into that people pleasing mode, and I just, had to do a video for them, SOS, talking about depression and suicide and stuff. And, and I was kind of hesitant because, like that's a touchy subject, especially with our young adults. And
Right.
so I watched it before because I wanted to be prepared because I never seen it before. So I was like, let me just look at it. And it was interesting how I had two students talk about how they felt less than. And one of them was a male. And you don't
Oh,
find males typically sharing stuff like that. And
that
so,
took a lot for that young man to say that.
yes, yes. And I gave him his accolades because I was just like, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm not even his teacher. He just had to sit in because he was in the area that I was in. And
Mm.
my heart was just so full because he allowed himself to accept where he was at.
Be
But
vulnerable.
yeah, and he also allowed his family and his friends to nurse him back to saying, even if I'm not able to do this, I'm still the same person.
Oh,
And what I told them, and I said, you should always want to be in spaces that you are heard, seen, valued, and respected. I said, and if you're not in those spaces, then you
hmm.
need to remove yourself. And and that's what I do. If I'm in a space and I don't feel those things, I know how to remove myself because I said we should always be in spaces that people want us to operate in with them. You know?
And normally, you obviously broke it down a little bit better. I say appreciated and not tolerated.
Right, right,
And I've been doing the same. I've been removing myself from spaces where I am not appreciated. And again, as a human being, not
right,
Karina the model or Karina the one, whatever.
right.
These are things that I do, but I'm
Absolutely,
talking about
absolutely.
Karina. And if I'm not being appreciated, I've literally have been removing myself from those spaces, and I have not felt guilty. Um, because again, as we walk in this journey, right? I mean, and we say the modeling journey, but you know, people pleasing is something that was in my nature, and through therapy I realized that my people pleasing came from my mom.
Mm,
It came from my home.
mm,
And i I didn't realize till, I'm gonna say, about th- 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, that my people pleasing really became evident to like, again, to myself. And I didn't realize that I was such a people pleaser
Right.
until recently. And it all, and again, through therapy, I figured out, because you have to dig deep and really go back and figure it out where the root of it is. And for me, it's
Mm-hmm.
my mom. you
Right.
know it really is my mom. My mom um is a narcissist. And I you know
Mm.
and again, I know she did her best. I know she
Absolutely.
did. um but she is. And when you deal with people who, no matter what you do, is not enough,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter what you do. And I spent my 20s really trying to change her, or change how she saw me.
Mm.
And I wanted her approval so bad. Like, and it wasn't just her, but my dad. And,
Mm-hmm.
I really yearned for their approval. And no matter what I did, it just wasn't enough. Matter of fact, it still ain't. And I'm 44. Okay.
Right.
I'm
Right.
just, I'm just better at obviously accepting the fact that
Mm-hmm.
she's not going to change. Of course, I've forgiven her for what she's done.
Right.
I understand that, she did her best with what she could and what she knew.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm like very self-aware. So now that I know, I can't continue to blame my mom for it, because
Mm-hmm.
it's different when you're not aware. But
Absolutely.
once you become aware of what the root cause of it is, you can't keep pinpointing and blaming,
You can't.
in this case, my mom. So once I saw, then it's really up to me to really make that change,
Mm-hmm.
or become like her.
Yeah.
uh, so I mean, I have a lot of good attributes of her, but I also know what I didn't want to be because of her.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so, I owe her a lot, but in the same breath, I space. Remember, we were talking about, and that's where the boundaries come in, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But in that people pleasing, obviously not knowing, you tend to put up with things from other people that are not
Yes.
necessarily family, but you put up with things from other people because you're again seeking their approval, and you think that you can change their thought process, or how they see things. And you tend to stay in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or a friendship, or even
Mm-hmm.
a family, or a situationship, as that people like to call it. You
Right.
tend to
Right.
stand in it longer because you think that you can change them, and you just don't.
No.
You don't. And one of the things that Pastor Jerry mentioned, I know that you and I have been going back and forth with
Yes.
sharing the sermons,
Yes.
but he
Yes.
literally called it toxic loyalty.
Yeah.
And that happens. Yeah, toxic loyalty, to the point that you're so loyal to this person that you choose to take in the toxin just to be loyal. And that happens more so, obviously, maybe in spouses or in family settings. We
Mm-hmm.
tend to just stay because you want to be loyal, but we can't.
It takes too much. And in the definition, it says a people pleaser is someone who has a strong desire to please others, even at the expense of their own needs.
Correct.
And when we get in that space, that is so terrible, because
Mhm.
we start, a piece of us is ripped off, and you and I talked, um, like last week, you start to change, you start to get sick, like you was talking about how you was in this relationship, and people think that being a people pleaser is going to make you popular, it's going to make people respect what you do, what you
Mhm.
have. It's not. And you clearly stated you were literally sick,
Sick.
like sick,
Sick.
physically sick.
In the hospital.
Yes.
sick.
And people don't realize that.
Yep. Yep. I was in that toxic friendship for so long, and it was making me sick, and I didn't even know. I
Yeah,
didn't even
yeah,
know until obviously after it was over, and until I, started, the therapy journey that I'm going to call it this correct therapy journey on, because I thought that I was, healing or whatever, but I clearly was
yes,
not healing the right way, because I
right.
was still people pleasing. And that
Mm,
even then that even not that also didn't just stem in that relationship. That also stemmed in yesing everybody for shows,
yeah,
yesing everybody for photo
yeah,
shoots. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So when you are sitting there yesing everybody because you want
Mhm,
to be
mhm,
not just
mhm,
liked but
mhm.
accepted, at least
Yeah, and that's
accepted.
the right. That's the number one thing. It says the most common habits of people pleasing is saying yes when they want to say no.
Mm-hmm. Because it's, oh, what
And like
are you
Queen
gonna
said,
think if I say no? Oh, they're gonna
right.
think I'm mean. Oh, they don't think that I'm, a team player. Oh, they don't think, man, when I tell you I done been through all of that shit.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why we have to start taking accountability, like you said. And Queen said it's draining. We have to start taking accountability because you clearly, even now, you could still, you know, point the fingers and say, I'm
Mm-hmm.
this because my parents, I'm that because my parents. But when we start taking accountability and say, you know what, I need to heal. I'm going to take this mask off, whether you like the true me or not,
Mm-hmm.
but this is for me, and I have to. And a lot of times we don't want to say no because we don't want people to reject us. But
Right.
like you and I said last week, if people truly love you, respect you, hear you, appreciate you,
They
if you say
understand.
I cannot, they are not going to get mad. They're not going to have that background noise with
Nope.
other people and say, oh, well, Donna said she can't do it, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
They're not going to do that background noise.
Nope.
They're
They
going to
won't.
say, you know what? My sis can't do it, and that's good. I still love her, maybe the next time. But, a lot of times we get in these relationships, and when we can't perform, if you will, we get a lot of background noise. We get a lot of
Child.
that background noise. And then when we get that background noise, people think you don't hear it or whatever. You hear it, but you also feel it if you're connected to that person.
Right. 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 And with my mom, and I keep coming back to my mom because, it was like I could never get it right.
Mm,
I could never get it right. And even when I got it right, you still didn't at
get it
least say, "Hey, good
right.
job," or
Mhm.
whatever. Like all they mentioned was how I fucked up, or where I went wrong. Again, still
Mm,
to this day, and I'm 44 years old. And again, I'm sick of it. I don't want to fucking hear it. Like, if that's all you want
right.
to talk about, then you know what? Hi, how are you? I'm glad you're well, this and that, and I talk to you later.
Yeah.
Um,
But how did you come to that point? Because I know it had to be a journey. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, these are your parents, and because they're families, we feel sometimes that they're not exempt. But as you and I are getting older, we're getting smarter, we're healing even more. We realize it doesn't. It is, like God said, He doesn't have no respect of person. So it's like we don't have no respect of person. Whomever it is that's causing us to not have peace, because when you have all these people pleasing skills, you're going to have that anxiety. You're going to be tired. You're going to have these headaches. Like you can end up in the hospital. So
yeah.
when was the pivoting point that you just had to say, it is what it is, but I'm going to still love you anyway, but I'm going to still be healed?
Mm, that was a very long journey, I will say. Um, I think it started. Let me kind of like take you back. I realized that I had to do something. I just didn't know how I was gonna do it.
Mm-hmm,
It was back in 2010 when I had my hysterectomy,
mm-hmm,
and I had my hysterectomy before I had my gastric bypass surgery. So I had my hysterectomy in January of 2010, and then of course I had my gastric bypass in July of 2010. And at the time, even before that, when I was having, so a lot of these things are now like coming up to surface like an issue, but back then they didn't know what the hell was going on. But I used to have a lot of fibroids in my uterus, right, causing hemorrhaging and all this stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
cervical cancer ran in the women's side of my father's side of the family. So the doctor has suggested that I have a partial hysterectomy, right? So I remember that there was one day I was at work, and these are the things that really I still to this day don't know the answer. But so that day I was at work, and my bosses already knew that I was, bleeding or whatever. And I had gotten up from my cubicle, and I got up and I felt like this biggest gush of blood. Like it felt like a kid just came out of me, right?
Jesus.
And it was a big gush of blood in my cubicle. So my boss was like, "Oh, do you want to call the ambulance?" I said, "No, I'll drive myself to the hospital." And this is back in Massachusetts, y'all. So I drove to Salem and I played Aerosmith Living on the Edge as loud as fucking possible in my car, and I drove to the hospital. And at the time, my husband was working at the hospital. So, I had told him that I was on my way. I went in, and that little room they put you in when they check you in and all.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in that room, and that even there standing, my pants were full of blood and wet. And I stood and I had another kind of like I call it the baby pushing moment. They just
Right,
felt
right, right.
it was like a pool of blood on that floor. When I tell you that my husband was literally on the floor on his knees wiping my blood, it was crazy. So anyway, fast forward. So that day it was Veterans Day. It was a holiday. It was a Monday. I remember. My mother was off and she didn't have to work. And I told her that I was in the hospital, and instead of her coming to my aid, she was at TJ Maxx and Marshall shopping.
Wow.
And those are the things that, people may not want, especially my family may not want to, but you know what? Fuck it. I ain't covering this shit up no more. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
So those are
right.
the things that they want you to sweep under the rug, and why
Mm-hmm.
you throwing people under the bus, and why you did.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is the shit my mother did to me. And I questioned, she ended up showing up to the hospital when I was getting discharged and I was putting my pants back on. And that was at like 8 o'clock that night. And mind you, I was already at the hospital like at 1. So it was more important for her to be at TJ Maxx and Marshalls than being by your daughter's side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, fast forward to January. I now then I've decided to then obviously have this hysterectomy, right? I was home for 4 weeks at the time. I was 29 years old, you guys. I was 29. My mother did not come to the hospital the day of. She, and back then they even released me the next day for a hysterectomy. I think nowadays they might let you go home the same day or something. I don't
Mm.
know. I'm not sure. But then I had my partial hysterectomy and I went home the next day. I was home for 4 weeks. 4 weeks. You think about, I think in 2010, Latrell was like 9, Nyla was little, 4. So I had
Mm.
2 little kids. The day before the surgery, I was home and I cooked food for like 2 weeks. Like
Wow.
I cooked because I didn't know what I was gonna be feeling like. But anyway, I was home for 4 weeks, people. And I hate to say it, that bitch never came to my house. And those 4 weeks did
Mm.
not come to my house to even see if I was okay. Better yet, to even see if my children needed anything.
Right, right,
And
right.
when I tell you, still to this day, I do not know why. I do not know why. The next day, I think the next day or 2 days later, it was a Saturday because my surgery was on a Wednesday. Came home Thursday. Saturday, she calls to see how I'm doing. And they were driving to Providence, Rhode Island because my sister needed her weave done.
Jesus.
Okay. So,
Mm.
and
So,
again, these are things that people don't, my family doesn't want me to tell. But if you want to sit there and question why I'm this distant, I'm taking it back that far is what I'm
Right,
saying. Like,
right.
it didn't stop is what I'm saying. It didn't stop even years after. I'm just saying I didn't even deserve a moment of your time. And
Mm,
so when that young man said he didn't feel worthy, I know exactly what he meant by that.
yes. Mm,
Because even as a kid, I never felt like I was worthy. But not even in that moment at 29 years old with a partial hysterectomy, and again, how
mm,
delicate it is to be in that state. My father had the fucking nerve to say that's nothing. That's nothing.
Jesus.
That's nothing. I said, you know what? You're not a fucking woman.
Mm,
So so again, I'm 29, and you're still feeling that you are not worth anything. So no matter what you do, it didn't matter. I was still seeking their approval even after all that shit.
at 29, and
At
that's what
29.
people don't. Yeah, that's what people don't realize. Like me and you talked last week. When
Yep.
we take our mask off and deal with our hurts, our pain,
Mhm. Mhm.
everything else, that's when we really can heal. And when you can talk about it, you know what? You might feel that sting, but it does not affect you the way
It
that he did,
then no.
because you took your mask off. And that's why, me and you talk all the time. People need to take their mask off, because you know what? You're not going to heal whatever past traumas you've
Yep.
had. Hey, you have them. Let's deal with them and let's move on, because when we don't deal with these traumas, we get into unhealthy relationships.
That is
We
correct.
pass it on to our children, and
That
then
is
our
correct.
children pass it on to their
Hmm.
children, and then the cycle just
It
continues. And that's
continues.
why it's okay. It's okay if you didn't have whatever. But it's not okay when you don't want to deal with it and you try to mask it because of what you think people want to
Right.
see.
Right. And when you are in that state, the people pleasing becomes, how do you say this? It becomes even, what's the word I'm looking for? When someone gives you some attention,
Mm-hmm.
right? You think it's healthy because
Mm-hmm.
you're coming from a place that doesn't give you anything, and they don't
Right.
really care about you, and all of a sudden you you get some attention from somebody, just some attention, and
Right.
you're easily manipulated, people, because
Yes.
you think that this
Yes.
is love, or you
Yes.
think that this person cares because they're giving you the time of day, and you're saying yes because you think they're nice and they're sweet and they're kind, and
Yes.
you get that those lines blurred. You get those lines blurred, and I did that in friendships because of,
Right.
and again, I call my mother the queen bee narc, but then I have two other narcs that were major in my life. I would
Mm-hmm.
say two other narcs, and the only reason that I realized it is that my third narc reminded me of my second narc.
Mm.
And through therapy, I figured out that my mother was the narc. So I'm like, wait, really? So the third narc did not do as much damage as obviously the other two,
Yes. Yes.
but it still stung, right?
Absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
it still stung. But like you were saying, I also have to take accountability for
Yes.
my part in it, because
Yes.
I can't
Yes.
sit there and just blame all of them.
No.
You also have to take accountability for saying yes
Saying yes. Saying yes when you want to say
when you
no.
wanted
And then
to say no.
that's
Hmm.
why when people say, can you do this or can you do that? It also says that we have to take a step back and just say, I'll get back with you. So that will give you time to process whether you're going to say no, if
Hmm.
you're going to set a time limit for it, and how much time is this going to take away from me?
Right. And I can only say that because of all this modeling and stuff that I'm doing. Because prior to obviously modeling, I didn't have any boundaries because I
Mm,
just worked my little job, hung out every now and then with some friends. So I never had this busy,
right,
crazy
right.
schedule where I needed to say no to people, or
Mm-hmm.
have boundaries too. Because for the most part, the people that are not part of this little journey, I've again not really had much problems with. They pretty much accepted me for who I am and love me for who
Mm-hmm.
I am. But in this particular journey, as I'm saying, as you meet people and we're doing the modeling and all this stuff, there's so many more snakes because we're in it. We
Yeah.
have to be in the people environment. We got to deal with all these people, and
Right.
not knowing who you are for one
Mm-hmm.
is not it's not beneficial. And then of course, if you are a yes person, it's not beneficial.
Yes,
If you do not have boundaries, it's not beneficial.
yes,
And take it from me, y'all, I done fucked up, okay?
right,
And
right,
and I had to learn the hard way. And thank God for therapy. Again, thank God for
right, right.
therapy and being able to really dig to the root of the problem, and
Mm-hmm.
now seeing
Mm-hmm.
where it came from. But
Right,
even
right,
though, again, like I mentioned earlier, just because I know where it came from doesn't mean that I'm going to rest on that. Oh, my mom,
right,
my mom, my mom. No, I'm not going to sit there and blame
right,
her no more.
right,
I already know. Now it's up to me to
right.
straighten it out.
Absolutely. It's up to you because you know where the root is, but now you have to do the work to
Hmm.
start creating healthy roots. You have to transform those dead roots
Hi, Miss
into
Harriet.
healthy roots. Hey, Harriet, Miss Cynthia, Cindy, you have to change those. And then, it was like you start to feel resentment or you lose your identity when you continue to be people pleasing.
Hmm.
And the more we allow ourselves to stay in those spaces, when you look in the mirror, you're gonna be like, who am I?
I didn't even know who I was because, again, with you, I'm with one person. Let's say with Miss Harriet, I'm somebody else. With Queen,
Right,
I'm with somebody else. So I have multiple personalities to the appease to whoever I'm with that day.
right,
Because everybody likes me for a different reason. So then
right,
you don't know who you are. And this
right,
has nothing to do with the modeling or whatever. This could even
right,
be in
right,
friendships,
right.
you know, in
Nobody
friendships.
knows if they're getting the real you
Hmm.
because, like you said, you're too busy changing faces, if you will, or changing masks to accommodate
Appease.
whatever circle or who you are dealing with. And then after a while, when you take that real mask off, you're like, wow, and
Yeah.
that's why I tell people all the time, I'd rather know who you are raw, jacked up, in between trying to get yourself together,
Yeah.
because I can love that person truly,
Hmm.
but I can't truly love a person like we're talking about right now when you're trying to have a mask for over here, you got a mask for right here and over there. And then when you take the real mask off, the love that I was giving you wasn't truly for you.
For you. It was
It wasn't
the persona that you put
right,
up.
right.
Um and that's sad because, you know, um because narcissists, they're suffering too.
Absolutely,
You
absolutely,
know, they're suffering too. And
absolutely,
they have to wear a mask themselves.
absolutely.
Um and it's sad because they're living. I think in this journey I am in now, I have so much more empathy for them because,
Stay true to who you are. Love me or not.
amen
Absolutely.
to that, Miss Harriet. Um, I feel like they are just living in this poor mask, and they're just so afraid to be who they really are, and
Mhm.
will people really love them for who they
Right.
are.
Right.
And I can honestly say that pretty much, once you start really thinking and, looking at God and what God has done for you or for me, I feel like I had love already. I just didn't see it because I was too focused on the love that I wasn't getting from my mom, my dad, and the immediate family. But I had love all around me the entire time, and I didn't even realize it. So, once you kind of realize, or at least I realized that, it was really beautiful. And when I turned 33, 2013, PJ and I, we renewed our vows to marry, to, celebrate our 10th anniversary. And even that day, that year, or year 9, was really rough for us, to the point that I had asked PJ for a divorce at the time. And we decided to renew our vows, and she was late to the ceremony. All she had to do was show up. I baked, PJ and I were not really in good financial standing. I baked my own cake. That was when I took YouTube you, honey, and I learned how to make a cake. And I learned how to make boutonnieres and bouquets, because we didn't have the money. So I figured it all out on my own. So all my mother had to do was show up to the ceremony that day, right? She showed up literally at the end of the ceremony, because I really thought I thought she thought that I was going to wait for her ass to show up so that we can then get married. Nah. So anyway, that day, again, this is 3 years later after the whole hysterectomy thing, I said, you know what? I'm going to live for myself now.
Absolutely.
Right? And that is when I always tell people, I'm technically 14 years old. Because or 11, because that was when I said, I'm gonna live for me. And that was in 2013, August 2013. And then I said, I want to pick up Zumba, and then I started that in 14. And, that journey took me into, again, strength and a little more confidence. And, I became a Zumba instructor, opened my studio. Like, that journey, it was like, you know what? I'm just going to do me.
Right. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And even with that, God took me out of Massachusetts and brought me here. I did not have North Carolina on the radar. No, that was my job at the time, that literally said they were closing down. Everybody was losing their jobs, and I was the only survivor. And God gave me a job here in North Carolina. The company literally upped my salary, like, really high. And they paid me $15,000 to move my family from Boston to North Carolina. In 3 weeks, I moved. And it was literally God. I swear that was God saying, you know what? You don't need to be here no more. You need to go. You need to go.
He'll do it every time. And,
Every time.
and that's why, when I post that post, whatever is for us is always going to be in clarity. It is never, ever going to be
either.
It's never. And, and that's why when we get in these relationships of people pleasing, you're not going to be able to hear clearly.
Nope.
You're not going to be able to make rational decisions, because you're going to always go to that person, whoever that person that you're still trying to please. You're going to always go to them for that clarity.
Yep.
And they're just confused as you are. And then you have two confused individuals, and nobody's moving, nobody's making no kind of progress, and we at a standstill. It's like we got glue on our feet and we just stuck.
Yep. All for the sake of making somebody else's life better or easier. Meanwhile, you're giving yourself the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
And again, I wasn't, again, the journey that I'm on now is the correct one. Even then, you're thinking because we're all going to constantly evolve, guys. We're all going to constantly change. And for people to think that they're going to hold you to that, let's say 2010 Karina, that ain't her no more.
That's not. And you know,
That
like
ain't
me and
her.
you said last
Shit,
week, you know,
2021 Karina is not 2024 Karina. Let me tell you.
right, right. And you know, and it says toxic people love people pleasers because they always have control over you. They know you will suppress your
Correct.
limits
That
just to keep them happy. Just to
that is
keep them happy.
correct. That is
And
correct. Um,
I'm like, oh. And if truth be told, like I've been in those
me too.
situations, but when you can find the strength to take your power back and say, I will no longer
Mm,
allow myself to be in these spaces, because you know what, I have to walk my own journey, and a lot of times we get stuck in people pleasing, and then whatever we're supposed to be doing, whether it's going to school, whether it's making a move, whether starting this or starting that, we get all these
yeah.
distractions because we're people
Yeah.
pleasing, and we never get started, and then you
Nope.
look back 3 years and you're like, I'm in the same
Yeah.
place that I was 3 years ago. I haven't even grown.
No. And
Haven't
if you
even grown.
listen to those people will obviously, stunt your growth because they're gonna literally then put their fears upon you, and they're, well,
Absolutely.
what if, and what if this, and what if that? So, those people really will, they will really stunt your growth,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
emotionally and even spiritually, and,
Mhm.
and professionally in a sense,
Yes. Yes.
depending on where, so people pleasing is, there's really no benefit in that. Again, I thought it brought me joy to be able to help other people and sacrifice myself for other people, but that's not the right way of doing it. That's not the Christ. That is not the Christ like way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's
It's
why we
not.
have to be grounded. And, and like, I tell everybody, like this journey that I'm on, like a journey of peace, a journey of health, a journey of just loving me,
Yeah,
flaws and all. And I don't feel bad, when I say no, because when I say no, it's for a reason, and I don't have to give you an explanation, because like we said last week, we're not supposed to be in every environment, because we don't know what spirits we're gonna come in
that
contact with, and some of
is
these spirits
correct.
may be so strong that we may not know how
To
to fight them
fight.
off. So
Yeah,
why do I have to say yes all the time? And every time I say yes and go somewhere, that's another spirit. Those are
that is
another
correct.
spirit that may be attaching their self to me. And I come home, I'm acting crazy, jumping off tables and stuff,
Yep.
because I don't know what spirit I done came encounter with.
So Jerry said, because you know me, I got my notebook.
Girl,
Jerry, and I wrote this down. So Jerry said, loving all people does not mean access to all areas of my life.
absolutely.
I'll write it again for maybe people in the back who want to know.
What did they say?
Loving
You said
all
it back.
people does not mean access to all areas of my life or your life. And again, this was Jerry Flowers. Um, that was
Right.
very profound.
And if you want to put it in another way, like you said, for them to understand why, that would be just like you giving people access to your bank account,
Right.
not knowing what they're going to do with it.
Yep.
But did you, when you were going through your people pleasing um, stage, did you find and have a lot of resentment?
So towards me,
Yeah,
to
like,
myself.
to yourself, like for always feeling like you got to show up.
You know what? No. And let me tell you why. Because I thought that by helping other people and yesing other people, I thought it brought me joy.
Mm.
So it kind of fed the ego a bit.
Okay.
And again, I'm learning all this pretty much. I really thought that I was designed to serve, but
Mm.
I was not serving the correct
The
way.
correct way.
You
Absolutely.
know,
Absolutely.
I, again. if it was up to my mom, I'd be 44 years old and I'd be what you call the old maid. I wouldn't be married, have a husband, or have children, because I would then live my life
Right.
for her.
Right.
And some people pleasers are like that, where how dare you live a life? How dare you get a husband and some kids?
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's, I really thought that I was being noble by
Mhm.
yesing. And it was literally, it had to, so my third narc is what really opened my eyes,
Mhm.
because I really gave myself to this person wholeheartedly. And then I started, I'm going to say, changing who I was. And
Mm.
I didn't even know that I was changing.
Well, that's one of the things it says, lack of authenticity, being not being your authentic self, and
Hmm.
loss of identity.
Hmm. And
Mm.
towards the end, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror and recognize who I was anymore.
Mm.
So that, I remember one day I literally was in, I had came out the shower and I started crying, and I literally said, Karina, who are you?
Mm.
I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, literally, I was like, who the fuck are you? I'm
Jesus.
like, and I didn't know. I honestly didn't know who I was.
Mm.
And it took, like I said, this journey almost ruined our marriage,
Wow.
because I changed who I was, and here I am
Mhm.
thinking I'm just helping, or
Right.
that I'm doing something good to further my little modeling career or whatever.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it it I literally, I lost who I was. I literally started losing my essence.
Mm.
And once once I kind of realized that, then it took me a
Mhm.
long time to then come clean to PJ, because I didn't even know where to begin. I didn't even know
Yeah.
I didn't even know where to start. And obviously, once I was like, with him and I, that's one thing, like, I always tell people, like, that's my nigga, that's my homie, that's my brother
Right.
first before he is
Right.
my husband. That is my best friend.
Yeah.
And so before he takes that title of a husband, so I literally had to come at him like a friend. I'm like, yo, can we talk?
Mm. Mm.
Um, uh, I'm not your wife right now, so can I, just
Yeah.
talk to
Yeah.
you like a
And how
friend?
did you receive that?
Well, no, he received it, because we were always that kind of couple where, and we still are in a sense, where we can talk to each other like friends and
Right. Right.
not
Right.
like a husband and
Husband
wife.
and wife. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but at the time, because of how I was changing, I didn't even know how to come at him. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And this is
Mm.
this is my friend who I've been with for 20 years, and I didn't even know how to come at him, Donna.
Because you have lost so much of
I lost
yourself.
so much of myself. Hmm.
And so now here you are, you got to be honest, open, and transparent
Uh-huh.
with a person that, but when you had conversations with him, did he kind of see the change
Yeah.
and was kind of like,
Yeah.
maybe you just having, sometimes
Oh
a
yeah.
midlife crisis, so, and when, because sometimes, you always wonder, do they see me? Do they notice that I'm
Oh,
different?
he noticed it. But I'm in my little people pleasing world that you don't even really hear what they're saying. He knew.
Right. Mm.
He knew the whole time.
Wow.
But because I'm like, what do you mean? No, you just mean. You're just an asshole. Oh my
Right.
God, you're nice and sweet, kind of giving. Blah. Oh no, trust me. Oh, he knew. He knew, and but he let me still be me. It,
Right.
even if that was the fucked up version of me, like, he still let me be me. Um, yeah, I mean, to have that conversation at that point, it was really uncomfortable, and but we're still different people. I still feel that I am a little nicer than he is. I'm a little more approachable than he is. You know, sometimes people think that, you know,
But
I have my personality, he has
if
his.
truth be told, he probably had a lot of peace in his mindset too, because he's learned how to protect his own space. And it's
Yes,
not, he know how to. He's a very laid back guy. I love his spirit or whatever,
he
but
has boundaries.
he knows how to set those
Right,
boundaries. And and like me, like I know how to set boundaries, and that's why I am so honest with my students. And I was talking to two young ladies today, and and I was telling them, make sure that you are staying true to who you are. And
hmm,
I even told them, I said, I was like, I have a problem with rejection. I said, especially when I'm a giver. I give. I
right,
would, and and I said, when I love people, I don't love like in between on the line. If Karina doesn't do something I need her to do, then I'm not gonna love her at
right,
that moment. But then I'll go back and love her again when it's beneficial for me. And and I was explaining that to them. I said, I do not like rejection. I said, because I'm a giver. And when I feel that I have given you everything freely
right,
and it's not appreciated, or I feel that it's not appreciated or reciprocated, it hurts me because it sets me back, and then I have to bounce back to reset. And and that's why I'm glad that I'm in a position that I can talk to these students, because I told them today, you don't want to get my age and still be trying to figure this thing out.
right.
You know,
Because you're
and
bleeding
one
all
of my
over people. You're bleeding.
right.
See, me, I didn't bleed all over people. So instead of me bleeding all over people, I became the people pleaser so that I don't,
Mhm.
so that I wouldn't, bleed on people. Because I could have easily turned into my mom.
Right,
You
right.
know what I'm saying? I could have easily adapted her ways and been just like her. But because I knew exactly what, at least at that time, I knew what I didn't want to be, you know,
Absolutely, absolutely.
so I kind of I think that's what kept me afloat, but I still wasn't dealing with the root cause of it all. I knew that
Mhm.
I didn't want to be her, but I still wasn't healing, the
Right.
underlying problem. I was just covering it up, thinking it was okay. And then when someone comes in your life and gives you a little bit of love and a little bit of attention, regardless for whatever reason, because most of it is
Absolutely.
toxic, right?
Hmm.
You then overcompensate because you have someone that you think loves you.
Right. And then you continue to put yourself out there,
Right.
hoping that, hey, cuz, hey, Chad, because you put yourself out there even the more, because you're saying, "Ooh, they gave me this little bit of
Attention.
attention that I needed. So the next time I'm going to still reciprocate." But then before long, like I just read about the
Yep.
manipulators,
Yep.
they continue to do it, and then you find yourself into a toxic control
Yep.
relationship situation,
Yep.
whether it's family, whether it's co-workers,
Yep.
whether it's associates, whether it's business partners, whatever it may
Anything.
be. You find yourself still seeking and craving that
Attention
attention,
or acceptance.
knowing that it's killing you. Like you said, it's killing you mentally, physically, emotionally, making you sick, you tired.
Yep.
And and when I was doing my research, it says it causes headache, stomach ache, and difficult sleeping
Child.
when you
All
are
facts.
people pleasing.
All facts.
And you are a living witness, and you probably had all these
That's I said
before,
all facts. Yep.
before you even really knew what it was.
Hmm. That is correct. That
But
is literally correct.
do you think, and anybody on here can chime in, do you think we know deep down inside when we're a people pleaser and we please people at any cost to fit in?
I think it depends on the situation, Donna. It really does depend on the situation. Because with my mom, right? And I come,
Mhm.
with my mom, oh, she's my mom. Let me just help her out. Oh, she's
Right, right.
my mom, you know, and sometimes she would use the scripture to, reverse psychology me and be like, honor thy father and mother and all that stuff.
Right, right.
So I'm supposed to literally bend down to all of your needs because you're my mom?
Mm,
No, no, I'm not. So, as long as I do respect you, and do what I have to do, yes, I'm fine. But I had those lines blurred so badly that I didn't know. I was so confused in my 20s, even in my 30s. I'm learning all this shit now. But
right,
even through all of this, I thought that I needed to be loyal to my mom because she's my mom.
right,
And
right,
and I
right,
didn't know even if there was a boundary, I didn't know what boundary to set because
right,
she's my mom,
right, right, right.
you know? So, but then when it came to the modeling, right? You're thinking, let me say yes to this. Let me just get my feet wet. Let me get my
Mhm,
name out there,
mhm.
known or whatever. So then you tend to put yourself in situations that are not ideal
Right.
because you're sitting there trying to appease somebody else's needs.
Mm.
And before you know it, you're in a fucking hole and you
Literally.
don't even know how to get out because in my case, you don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Right, right.
You didn't want to hurt people's feelings, but yet I'm the one. My feelings are getting hurt and stomped on left and right.
Right, right. You're the one crying. You're
Crying with the
feeling
headaches, no sleep, stomach
right,
aches.
right.
Listen,
And
yep,
because people pleasers, they don't want people to think that they're not perfect, and they don't want to, they want to avoid disagreements and they want to avoid these conflicts. But at the end of the day, if you keep people pleasing, it's gonna be some
it
conflict. You're gonna fight
will be
back.
at some point with
And
yourself, but even with other people because
yes,
you can't wear the different masks all the time.
all the time. No, because you're gonna get confused. My grandma used to always tell us girls, we was trying to talk to guys or stuff. She used to always tell us, she said, the real person is going to show up sooner or later.
Yeah. Yep.
She said they can mask whatever they want to. She said, but that real person is going to surface
Yep.
because it takes too much energy to keep changing these masks. And then what happens today, they slip up and forget to put that other
Other
mask on that they've
mask
been
on. Oh yeah.
hiding.
I
Yeah,
trust
you
me,
see
I
what
saw
I'm
that
saying?
too.
Like, yeah. So I mean, like I said, if you're jacked up and you're my friend and I want you in my space, I'm gonna love you jacked up because I know I'm getting the
Yeah.
raw version of you. But
Hmm.
if you and people in our lives always putting on the facade and trying to, let people think we got it all together, we can handle this, I know how to navigate over here, I know how to navigate in this situation over here.
Hmm.
No, you don't, because you're navigating in situations, you're navigating your life, and you playing Russian roulette with your life
Yeah.
because you have not realized that you're not supposed to be in everybody's space.
No. And they're and them not in yours. And
No
then when you then change as you are evolving and realize where you are wrong, because again, accountability, right?
accountability. Yeah.
And now these people really are shocked that you are now this new person,
Right. Right. Mm.
you know? And then as you're trying to get to know thyself,
Mhm.
you're you're not doing it to be hated or despised and then you go, damn, they don't like me. They don't
It's
like this
called growth.
version of me.
It's called
And
growth.
and it takes a lot of inner work to really fall in love with who you are.
Yes.
Um
Yes.
and really that's been kind of like the journey that I've been on for almost 2 years,
Yes.
because for the most part I know who I am. I'm loving,
Mhm.
I'm caring, I'll feed you, I'll cook for
Right. Right.
you,
Right.
all that stuff. But really loving who Karina
Right.
is, um it was something that I never really dove into,
Mm.
you know till now, till recently. And
Because loving
it's
who you really are, sis, it takes work. It takes
every
work. Like you
day.
said, you know you're kind, you know you will help, somebody if they're hungry.
Yeah,
But when you really want to dig deeper and know that inner
yeah,
person, know what really makes you tick. And and like for me, I always thought, well, if they don't want me in their life, it's okay. But when I realized that rejection
hurts.
is really a deep thing, hurt for me. So I had to protect myself so I wouldn't allow myself to always stay in those places and be in those people's lives because rejection hurts me to the core
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because
Hmm.
of who I am as a person, because
Right.
I love. And because when I love you, I don't be like, I don't want to love her today. No. And so for me, that rejection really cuts me to the core. And I
Yeah.
had to realize that. And I'm not ashamed to say that
Right.
that piece of me, that hurts. That piece hurts for me.
Yeah.
Where rejection
Totally.
may not hurt you like that.
No, it does. Because
You
again,
know?
you want to be, deep down, we all want to be accepted.
Right.
We
Right.
all want to be loved. All of us do. All of
Yes.
us do. That is in our nature. But lo- figuring out who you are and then loving that person of you, of
Yes.
you, takes a lot of inner work. And
Yes.
again, who I was, let's say at 18 or at 22 or at 29 or at 33, at 35, I feel like I have been evolving through the years, but I
Mhm.
was still not healing, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
um Again, it's just takes a lot of work. And you gotta be willing to you know do that marathon for yourself, because it's never ending. You're always gonna evolve, you're always gonna change. And hopefully you have a group of either a spouse or family or friends that will love you through
Oh,
all of
yes.
your
Yes. Yes.
stages. And it's beautiful when you do have that little tribe that really does love you for you, even if it was 2014 you and 2024 me.
Right.
uh
Right.
it
Because
it's
healing is healing and you have to do the work. And and I commend you because like a lot of times people shun like going to therapy, but if
Oh no, it's
therapy
so
is
needed.
what you need, then you have to do what you have to do. Because
Hmm.
when my late husband was living, like when we was going to divorce, I was like, the only way our marriage is going to be saved is we need somebody else, like sitting over there, like trying to help us figure this
Right.
out. Because when we can't figure it out
No.
ourselves, it's time for us to need some help. So
Yeah.
they can divulge and dig deeper. And a lot of times I feel that, in my opinion, that people don't want to go to therapy because when you go to therapy, it's going to be work. It's not going to be like your girlfriend be like, yeah, girl,
Yeah.
maybe you should try this. No, it's going to
Yeah.
be some digging, and it's going to bring up some old
Some
wounds.
old
It's going to
shit.
stuff.
Painful
It's
shit.
going to, you're going to have to, it's going to be like they having surgery on you, and they finna start taking this stuff out so you can heal properly.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. I love my therapist right now. I
And
love
that's
her.
amazing that
and
you have one that you can connect with.
and let me tell you, she has been able, because now, of course, you see my husband, he's modeling, doing all this stuff
Yep.
with me or whatever, which is great, fabulous. But we've been able to take our marriage to a whole new level of
Wow.
communication and understanding, and really understanding who we are as individuals. And again, I've been with him since I was 18 years old. He's
Right.
46, I'm 44,
Right.
and he too had some things that he was, kept inside because of,
Right.
him being young and going through his stuff. So we've been able
Right.
to unpack all of that
Mm.
shit because of our therapist, you
Wow.
know. And I also believe that before our therapist got involved, I feel like even though he meant well, his delivery wasn't the greatest. So then now he is able to communicate in a way that I can understand
Right, right.
now, without feeling like I'm being attacked, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And without her being in the middle, none of that wouldn't have been able to happen, because trying to understand each other and trying to um, understand our points of view,
Mm-hmm.
you, you know, and doing it in a loving way. I swear, I tell you, I wouldn't have been able to do that with that, the mediator or the therapist in the middle,
Yes, yes.
because you think that I'm right and then he's right, but in the end, our feelings are valid.
Right, right.
Our feelings are valid. Now, how we got to those feelings, that's a totally different, you know, avenue, because, he grew up on, a different side of the tracks than me.
Right.
So, trying to learn to understand where we come from, or where we came from, or why because one of the things that we process things different. Him and I, we
Absolutely.
process things different. And, and until all of the, until, being in this particular journey together, we didn't really understand
Mm.
each other's processes.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
How
yes.
we, so being now in therapy together, we've been able to understand how we process a certain
Mm-hmm.
situation, conversation, or scenario,
Absolutely.
whatever. And, you know, again, we come at each other with way more love. And
Mm.
or matter of fact, let's not take the word grace.
Yes, yes,
Let's take the
absolutely.
word love out of there.
Yeah,
Grace. Uh,
absolutely. And that makes a
uh,
difference.
so now, instead of like, why didn't you get it? Or why don't you understand? When you be together, we've been together 20 years. You don't fucking know this shit by now, blah.
Right,
You
right.
know, and 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 let me tell you, one of the mistakes that I made, and this is way before I even moved here, I attributed my happiness to him. I literally laid, "You're responsible for my happiness."
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
no, he's not. Like,
Right,
no, he
right.
ain't. It was, once I realized that he wasn't responsible for my joy, oh my God, that was an epiphany. That was a light bulb, an aha moment. But even still, in my journey of joy,
Right.
you make mistakes.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and what brings me joy is not necessarily what brings
Yeah,
him joy. You
absolutely. And,
know?
and I think that's why it's so important, like you said, like we all process things different. Like you and I may have a conversation and you may see it one way, I see it another way. It doesn't
Right.
mean that you're right and I'm wrong. It just means that my outlook and my processing is totally different. But
Totally.
at the end, like you said, we have to come to a medium and say, you know what, I can see it that way too, and try to put myself in that position.
In
But
that position.
a lot of times we don't, and I think a lot of times that's where couples, friendships, family relationships, because you may have that one dominant person
Right.
and they just feel like their view
It's
is the
the
law.
right
And
one and the one
it
and
is
only.
not right. And so, and when I find myself in situations like that, I usually don't say anything because at the end of the day, I can express to you how I feel, but if you don't try to understand, then we're going to just make it worse. So
Right. And shutting
I
down is
just,
not even the right thing to do either.
it is
Um,
not,
no,
yeah. But
no. I,
like for
mm,
me, I did that for a long time. And I still do because I just don't feel like giving it that energy.
mm,
And so like you, I'm still working on certain areas in my life.
we
And
all
like
are.
that's one thing that I'm working on because like I don't feel like giving it the energy. But like you said, when I don't give it the energy, if you will, then they're still winning if you want to look at it as
Yep.
winning.
And
And
then no understanding.
I'm still at a place that, you know what, my opinion matters, how I feel matters. But when I don't stand up for myself and say, this is how I'm feeling, this is how you making me feel, and if they don't get it, I'm just like, okay.
And once I obviously realized that I was a people pleaser, and this came to me again because, you know, I ask God a lot of questions and he just answers. So back to Jerry. He said that we have to perfectly try to categorize people,
Mm,
you know, placing them in the right category in a sense.
yeah. And what
And
are those
so
categories?
he said, and I'm going to my notes. Give me a second.
All right, let me get my, oh shoot, my pen.
So I don't know if I did I share that YouTube sermon. It says I will not wait. No, not the name of it.
I,
It's
no, you
called.
didn't. I don't yeah,
It was called
let me see.
put them in their place, right? Putting people in their place. And
Um,
he obviously went to scripture to it, but he said this. He said there's four kinds of people.
oh yeah, you sent it to me. Mm-hmm.
It was project, parasite, pawns, and partners.
Well, go ahead and let us know what those are.
So, and again, this is, you know, obviously from his sermon. He was, and bear with me because I'm even trying to read my own dang on writing. So, so he put projects are not bad people.
Mm,
Um, they do not, uh, oh goodness, they do not look to build, or basically you do not look to build with them, but you lay bricks with them.
mm, foundation.
Bricks. They are simply there to help you. He said, not to date. You do not confide in projects. You do not tell them your life's history. And
Mm,
they are there to help me complete a task. And
project
then
people.
he says, you need to understand your value, because if you don't, then you think that that project is some kind of like a blessing, or they have some kind of significance in your life. He literally said that. Um, Projects are just assignments, not alignment.
Mm,
Then there's parasites. They live off of you.
mm,
They will be carefree while you are stressing over their problem. And sometimes those parasites are covered in either potential or compatibility. So you may look at somebody and they have so much potential, or in a relationship sense, they're
mm-hmm,
compatible to you, and, and they pretty much glean off of you, right? And he
mm-hmm,
says the enemy will attach. So in a relationship, he says the enemy will attach good sex and pleasure to parasites, because you
mm,
will tolerate the poison because you are addicted to the pleasure. The devil
Jesus.
attaches lethal, basically the lethal dose with pleasure, Milo.
Yeah.
So basically, you don't recognize that
Right.
it's unhealthy for you because that person or that relationship is bringing you
Give it
so much pleasure.
right. Toxic.
Right?
And you don't.
Toxic,
Mm,
right? Then he says pawns. He says pawns are people sent from the enemy to disturb your inner you, which is like your inner peace, your inner passion, your inner joy. And he says the devil hates to see you mature. They interrupt
absolutely.
your evolution. They, they only come in your life so that you can miscarry your time and your focus.
Mm,
Then lastly, partners. He says he so partners constantly ignite you, evolve you, and accelerate your growth in Christ. They are instrumental to your kingdom lifestyle of growth. They are character. It helps with your character and assignments that that helps with partners, and they not always necessarily have to be blood.
Right.
Now, he did say just because they are family does not mean that they are a partner.
Absolutely.
Then he talks about lethal loyalty, which we already talked about, is when you're so loyal to something that is killing your inner peace.
Right. But how
And
do we stop that though, sis? Or should I say, how are you stopping that? And, you know, and what strategies have worked for you?
so for me, is obviously using the discernment from the lessons of the past
Mm-hmm.
with people. Because now that I've learned, this newfound wisdom of having to categorize people, then
Mm-hmm.
hopefully God can give you the wisdom and the discernment. But not only that, the lessons that you experienced from the past. Because if you don't learn the lesson, the same people are going to keep coming back to you in different
Absolutely.
bodies.
Absolutely.
Um, but one of the things that he mentioned, and he used scripture, and I'm trying to see what he used, but he talked about how God had named his 12 disciples, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to find where it was, but he said he had his 12 disciples. And out of those 12 disciples, he only took three to the mountain. He took Peter, John, and James. And, and when he took those three to the mountain, he was able to be vulnerable with those three people, and also show his obviously his greatness with those
Mm-hmm.
three disciples. So he took those three disciples to the mountain. Meanwhile, the other nine stayed in the valley. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're, again, bad people, but those were not
Absolutely.
mountain people,
Right.
right?
Right.
And he used, hold on, was it
Let's see. I'm looking.
John 6:70. Jesus answered to them, "Did I not choose you, the 12, and one of you is a devil, aka Judas?"
Right.
He says God knew out of the 12 who would fulfill his purpose. Properly placing people will offend those who are vandalizing your peace. So, for me at this point, again, I'm a lover of humans. I love people,
Me too.
but I can't get, like he said, you can't love them all at a point where you're giving them all this access. Some people
Right.
are going to have to be valley people, and then some people are going to will be your mountain people.
Right.
Um, and again, this is something that these notes I took, what was it, a couple days ago?
Yeah,
So,
I'm gonna go. You sent me that one too. And even because, like, when I pick topics, like, I go and research and see what God said about it. And so,
yeah,
and then I looked up, it's Galatians 1:10, and it says, um, I I now try. It says, a now trying to win the approval of human beings or gods, or I am trying to please people. If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant. So God
right.
is telling us we can't be pleasing people.
No.
Um, to and if He's saying that, then sis, why do we do it?
Because the flesh, it's the flesh. Because either, and not just that, we also do it because we don't know the word.
Let me
We
see.
don't know the word, and we're not also listening to what God is asking us to do, because we really do have to sit in a quiet space to try to hear his voice. Because if
Right.
not, you have way too much noise, from people in life, for us to sit quiet and really listen to what he's saying. Um, he mentioned, okay, let
It,
me see if I can get into the book of Mark.
yeah,
Hold on.
I'm going here
He,
too. Okay,
yeah,
so I'm
I
going
didn't write it
to
all because, but let me see if I can find the book of Mark. But he literally was, he reference obviously to those scriptures that, you know, I was just like, wait a minute, wait, hold on. See, I was literally like in shock when he was saying those things, when, you know, God obviously had to properly place his
Right,
disciples. He had to
right.
properly place his own disciples. He did that too, because he couldn't be vulnerable with all 12 of them. He can only be vulnerable with those three, you know?
And
It
so,
was
like
interesting.
in Galatians 1, and then it's basically saying we can please our Heavenly Father by grace, seek His approval by His grace, and know that when you do, you will not only have a secure foundation for your own identity, worth, and value, you will not be pulled up and down by what others think or what you think others think about you.
Yes. And then Galatians 6:1, brother or brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself less if you were tempted. Uh,
Mm,
he put that, he had that. So even though, again, you still got to be, again,
right,
kind,
right.
because that's what you want for you, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I was literally in awe. But he said, hold on, wait, where's Mark? Okay.
You
Mark 3:13 and 15, 13 to 15. Hold on, Mark 3.
Mark 3.
Ew.
You said Mark 3 and 13?
Yeah, so 3:13 to 15.
Okay.
So
Oh,
coming.
come on. Open
Okay. So he says, Jesus went up to the mountainside and called to him those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12, designating them apostles, that they might be with him and that he might send them out to preach and have authority to drive out demons. So he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do that with the other nine. He can only do that with those three.
Mm-hmm.
Then he hops into Mark 5:37. Hold on, 5:37. Oh wow. So
I'm going with you. Mark 5.
okay. So when he decided to go to the mountain, he said he did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came home to the home, when they came to the home of the synagogue ruler, Jesus saw a commotion with the people crying and wailing out loud. So again, he is literally picking people. So we must do the same. We really got to have that discernment of having to pick those right people. And we're not going to do that in people pleasing. We're not
We're
going to
not.
find, no, because we're not going to find who those people are while we're in people pleasing mode. We're not going to be able to do that at all.
And if we want to really, if I mean, because we don't read it in these scriptures, people pleasing is a sin.
It really is.
Because we have allowed these people to
Yeah.
become our gods.
Our idols.
So
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
it's a sin.
It
You know, we can
sure
call
is.
it it's not, but it's a sin because it's keeping us from having the foundation that he is trying to teach us, that I am the one and only, and there's not going to be any one before me. So
Yeah.
therefore, we have to be careful, like you said, and put these people in their
And in
proper
their place.
places.
Uh-huh.
They're for proper places, but yet we have to put them in their proper places. But yet we cannot sin, people please, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and think that we're going to have peace, or we're going to have joy, or we're going to have love, long
Yeah.
suffering. We don't have none of that because we have made whomever, whatever, our gods,
Right.
and that's why we're in these struggles. That's why we have to do so much work within
Yeah.
ourselves. And just like you have made it so clear, it does not. People pleasing has no respect of person. Your
No.
people pleaser, your started off was your mama.
Yeah.
a person that birthed you, a person that's supposed to love you, a person that's supposed to protect you, nurture you, give you all of this stuff that you need, but at that same time, she's
Toxic.
she did the damage.
She did the majority. She did most of
She
the
did
damage,
the
man.
damage.
Yeah.
She started corrupting your roots, and then your roots just started getting darker and darker.
Yeah.
And now here you are in therapy. Now these roots have been uprooted, so now you're starting to plant new roots in
Yes.
good
Or
soil.
de-root or de-root
Right,
what that old stuff was there because
right.
and again I hate that I'm saying it's her, but
But
it caused me to make mistakes. And again, I'm taking accountability for those mistakes,
accountability,
you know,
absolutely.
for those mistakes, but because you're so jaded and so blind and so confused, you don't know what end is up.
Right, right.
You really
But then God said, he don't have no respect of person. Toxic people don't have no respect of person, whether it's your mama, sister, brother, cousin,
right.
children, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But what matters is, like you said, she was the root cause, but you have to be the root changer.
Right.
You got
So
to start
healing
changing it.
is our
Yes,
responsibility, not
absolutely.
theirs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you can't blame them for you not healing.
Absolutely. Because you can stay in
And
that place if
you
you
can
want
stay
to.
there. You can stay the victim because it's comfortable, it's familiar. Remember
It's
we talked about
yes,
that, right?
familiar.
So
Yes.
because of the fear of the unknown of it being in that healing journey, because you don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know what
Mhm.
people are either going to stay or fall off. So you prefer to stay, as they say, victim mode
Mhm.
because it's familiar.
Yeah.
And for those people who don't want to change it, oh, I'm an asshole and I'm an asshole because,
Right.
so then you
Right.
decide to
Right.
be that person because you're aware and but you're comfortable.
Right. Because when change requires being uncomfortable,
Being uncle child. Mm-hmm.
change calls you to uproot some stuff.
Yep.
And we know in our hearts and in our minds that we've all had different traumas at some point in our lives. It
Mm-hmm.
may not have been at childhood, it could have been in
No.
your 20s or whatever. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that trauma is still there.
Yeah.
And then when you face another trauma, all you're doing is stacking the layers until it gets so high that now you got to go reverse because now this trauma of me feeling unloved, now I
Right.
got to go to the next one that I don't piled up, which hating myself until I get all the way back down to the very root cause.
Yep. I had to do, and it was funny because remember when we talked about my gastric bypass,
Right?
I had to, when my doctor made me go at the time, my therapist, because I remember I had to go to therapy before I could get
Yes,
the clearance
yes,
for that
yes,
surgery.
yes.
And I remember that my depression was from, you know, being, from my mom and my childhood, all this stuff, but I still wasn't really dealing with each individual trauma because there were several.
Right, right.
And and so in this case, my trauma triggered me to eat. So just like
Mm.
people will either drink or do drugs or
Yes,
let's say
yes.
gamble or shit, even sex from what I've been, from what I heard,
Well,
you know. Um, so at least I was able to become aware, okay, I was depressed and I was depressed because I had a crappy childhood and
mhm,
whatever.
mhm,
But like I said, this time now, this journey, I'm literally dissecting every little bit, and
mhm,
then seeing where things were my fault or things that were not my fault, especially when I was
mhm.
a child. These are things that were not in my control. Um, but I will say one thing that Oprah said a long time ago, and I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but let's say I'm a gallon and all my mother could give me was her pint.
Mm. Yeah.
So I cannot expect a gallon from a pint person.
Right.
So I had to literally realize, and I learned that I'm going to say 5 years ago that I came across that comment
Mhm.
that she had made. and I think she was talking to like Deepak Chopra at the time. Um,
Right.
I literally was expecting a gallon from a pint.
Mm.
And,
Mm.
and I had to, in my forgiving process, I had to forgive her because that's really all she could give me.
Oh,
And
she could
then
give you.
remember, you know, when people are toxic, those patterns then obviously become hereditary because she doesn't know, that's all she knew, so that's all she gave me too. You know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I can't sit there and be like, oh, all this stuff. I really had to then come to terms with the fact that one, I'm a gallon, she's a pint, and all she could give me was a pint. And I also had to come to terms that that's all she knew how to do it.
Right. And
You
just
know?
like you just mentioned, though, when you're talking about unhealthy coping
Yeah.
mechanism, like drinking alcohol, overeating, and
Hmm.
this it says these can have a negative impact on both physical and mental health over time if left
That,
unchecked.
that is correct.
Yeah,
That is correct. And
because what you're trying to do is feed that feed that trauma. And you,
mhm,
like you said earlier, you're gonna feed it with whatever makes you feel good.
right.
Because like me,
Mm, stop people
on
pleasing
my
made me feel
journey,
good.
right, and like on my journey to grieving and accepting JT death, I accepted it, but that part of me inner hadn't accepted
Right.
because I started eating late at night, like three,
Yeah.
4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
That was my time because I was eating at night because I felt good. It brought me comfort. I had chips, I had sodas, I had candy. And then finally I had to check
It feels
myself.
those endorphins. It
Right.
feels those endorphins in the
And
brain.
I was just like, listen, you're killing yourself. Like, really, because like you're eating all this unhealthy food. And then I felt like crap the next morning.
Right.
Because
But you don't think about that in
no,
the process because you're only thinking
no,
about what makes you feel good in the
right,
process. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. In
And
that
so
moment.
now, I'm like, I had to start changing habits. But when I faced that was my trauma, even though I accepted it and I knew he's gone on to be with the Lord, that was
Yeah.
still a trauma for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
put on that face to make, people see that I had it all together. And remember, I told you, like in December, he shook my whole world. God just shook my whole world. And like, I was like, whoa, oh, wait. But he had to do that in
To
order
restore
for
you.
me to restore me. And I told you, like, I was in a place that I got comfortable. And then he was like, I didn't mean you to stay here
Right.
to be comfortable. I had to restore you for the next.
Right. And isolate you. And isolate you for the next
Girl,
so that you can hear him. Yeah.
that was so hard because I told you my mom was like, like you should have told me, like, and I told her, I was like, Mama, it's not about you. It was what he had to do with Donna.
Yeah.
He had to heal Donna, that old Donna, to restore this new Donna.
Correct.
And I said, and the only thing you could have done for me is pray, because he is the Father.
Mm-hmm.
He's the Father. So if he say I got to be on sabbatical for 2 months, out of commission for 2 months, then it's 2 months.
Yep.
And even if he start changing your mind, you be like, let me call Donna, and something be like, nah, girl, I'm gonna call her tomorrow. He will work in that way as long as he got you over here in
Mm-hmm.
this little tent, and he's saying, I'm gonna get what I need from you one way or
Right.
the other.
One
So
way or the
either
other.
you can do it willingly and let me guide you, or you can be fighting, but it's still gonna get done.
It's
It's still gonna
yeah,
get done.
he's funny
It's
that
gonna
way.
get
Yeah.
done. You can be kicking and whatever, but it's still gonna be done. And so that's why, when me and you talk, I love it because we have these conversations. A lot of times people don't want to have these conversations. And I
No.
found the older that I'm getting and the more real that I'm getting with myself, with my own traumas and my own, struggles,
Mm-hmm.
it feels good when you don't have to hide those struggles. It feels
Right.
good when you can say, hey, no, because like I said, that rejection was one of mine that I tried to mask for so long and be like, oh yeah, well, okay, well, if you don't want, I don't have to deal with you. No, that was surface because that was my way of saying, whatever. But in here,
You were hurt.
that shit hurt. And I had
Mm-hmm.
to deal with that and I had to face that. So now, if I'm rejected, only thing I say is, Lord, I was rejected because you allowed the rejection
Correct.
to happen for me because you knew how much damage
That
it was going to
person or that
do.
person or situation would have caused you. Mm-hmm.
Right. It was going to cause me more pain. So
Right.
did they reject me? Yes. Did it hurt? Yes, daughter, I know it hurt.
Yeah.
But I'm saving you more hurt because I let them reject you from the beginning.
Look, it's no matter how whether we slice it or not, sometimes that either if we want to call it rejection or non-acceptance or whatever, it's really God's protection, and we don't even
Yes.
realize that it is
Yes.
because
Yes.
the flesh is so focused on what we want that
Absolutely.
you don't even realize that that is literally His protection. That
Yes.
rejection or that denial is His protection, and I caught a wind of that quite a few times, but I didn't understand it till
Right.
now.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
I I didn't understand it till till I will say recently within the past couple years how how being rejected, like again, hurts like hell, but
Right.
really He was protecting me this whole time. And like I was saying, well, I was in, like I said, when I was in disobedience, He could have easily just fucking wrote me off and not talk to me at all. But
Right.
in some cases He was talking to me, and and again, the flesh just wants what it wants, right? So you're sitting there not
Absolutely.
really listening, to the point that in some cases He really had to intercede.
Mm.
Like you said,
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
interceded. He had to do what he had to do. And
Because he knew he couldn't
he
handle it
knew.
because of the people that it is.
Hmm.
I might can't say no to Jimmy over here, but he know if he's saying Tom, Tom may have exactly what I want, and it may be hard for me to resist him or it
Right.
or whatever. So yeah, I mean, like I'm telling you, like rejection for me, that was a struggle for me. Like, and now that I'm getting older, and now that I'm allowing him to guide me,
Hmm.
even when I look, sometimes I ain't gonna sit here and say that I don't, because we want what we want.
Yep.
But I'm learning to just say, okay, you say you got me. I'm trusting you got me.
Hmm.
You say you're gonna fight this battle. I'm gonna let you fight this battle.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, this flesh sometimes want to fight it for him
Child.
and say, "Listen, you waiting, you taking too long. Like, Lord, when you gonna fight this battle?" And so now, for me, it's like it's the wait. It's the waiting. Like, okay, all right, I know I told you I'm gonna let you fight this battle, but I'm thinking like, Lord, like, do you need a little help over here for this one? I'll be trying to be like, do you need a little help? Because my flesh want to take over and be like, I can handle this, I can solve this. But then I go right back to say, I make a
I
mess.
make a
And I have been
mess out of
the
it.
mess
Yep.
of my life for the last, I'm going to say 55 years. I have made a mess of it.
Child.
A
Preach.
mess of it. And now that I'm at this place, trusting him, believing him, and just saying, you know what? I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what you're trying to do. But right now, whatever you're doing, I feel good. I feel
And
good.
and he Jerry had said a few things. Spiritual intelligence doesn't happen in the comfort zone, and it says your breakthrough isn't going to happen in the comfort zone either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it says, and it's easy to get frustrated. So frustration is imminent when you don't see any results.
Yeah.
Um, but he also said, there was another one. I think I sent you this one, the one being in the valley, and it wasn't Pastor Jerry who preached this, who pastored this one. It was, I guess, a guest at his church. It was Will Jackson, and he said that before you elevate, you really gotta really be in the valley. You know, we have to be in the valley because one. you know, he had said this, what if David never really practiced in the valley?
Mm,
Then he wouldn't have been able to, you know, beat Goliath, you know?
right.
Um, so he said that being in the valley, put it, I'm gonna say this, that what while we're in the valley, we have to identify the origin of the valley that we're in, right? Either is it a self-inflicted valley or is it a Satan manufactured valley,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Because again, we also gotta, again, back to accountability. We sometimes have to take accountability for the shit that we put ourselves through, and that wasn't
absolutely.
necessarily Satan. That was us. That was the flesh. We made a choice,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
And
Right.
yep. So we have to really come to terms with figuring out, you know, whatever challenges that you're facing, was it something that was self-inflicted? And again, people pleasing could put you in that valley,
Yeah.
right? And that wasn't necessarily Satan made. That was a choice that we made.
Right.
Um, and but also in the valley, we get stronger. It's like being in the gym, right? Being in the valley, sometimes he said something that was really cool, and I'm trying to find the words, but he said something about how when you're in the valley, you can also see the holes within you,
Mm,
like whatever whatever
absolutely.
whatever flaws are in there. So once, you can't elevate until you get through that stuff in the valley.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, and that was really kind of like big for me, because when, as I'm getting all these blessings and all these things, I don't want to skip the process or skip, you know, I don't want to go from A, B, C, F,
Mm-hmm.
G, you know what I'm saying, and skip
Yeah. Yeah.
certain levels, because
Right.
because that's when we're up the mountain, we're going to come back down because we skipped D.
Right. Right.
You know what I
So
mean?
you might as well
So,
stay in the alley and stay in the fire, if you will, and allow him to keep pruning you, to keep
mhm,
showing you what he's trying to take out. Because I always say, if we lay on his operating table and allow him to take all this stuff,
right,
on whatever we've been through, he's going to replace it with what we need. And
right.
what better person to know what we need is him. He
That's right.
created us. And and people, like you said, we give Satan so much
We
credit. A lot of
do.
stuff we have done, I'm going to say over 90% of the things that we
It's,
have done in our lives have
it's
been
us.
self-inflicted.
Yes, they have.
Self-inflicted.
Mhm. That is
And it
correct.
was only by the grace of God that we survived in our foolery out there.
Because again, choice.
Choice.
Choice is
And
huge.
it was self-inflicted. I can't blame everything on Satan,
Nope.
because I had a choice. I had free will. Remember, God gives us free
That free
will.
will.
So my will was over there to do whatever
Yeah.
I thought I could do, but it was self-inflicted.
Yep.
I caused it. I
Yep.
wanted it. I did it, and it left me broken.
That.
It left me jacked up,
Yep.
hurt, you know, so resentful, like used. So it was all self-inflicted.
Yep. Yep. So as I realized the valleys, right, or the
Right.
self-inflicted valley, or Satan made valley, whatever. I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not ready for elevation yet.
Yeah.
I'm not ready. I have so much shit that I got to work on right now that I'm like, yeah, I ain't ready. So
But see, he's
I'm
elevated.
literally, yeah,
Even
I'm literally,
you're still, even though and he knows that he's still working on you, but
yeah,
even in the midst of him working on you, he's still elevating you,
yes,
because me and you have been through this journey for the last 2 years,
yep,
and we have
yes,
grown. We have seen each other at the bottom, the middle, in between, but even still, we're still in the fire, but he's still elevating us
mm-hmm,
in different areas of
mm-hmm,
our lives, so
mm-hmm,
he can still continue to get what he needs, that we can give to others and pour into others. But he's never going to take us out the fire until we're completely where he wants us to be. But even in the fire, even in our valleys, he's still elevating just a little bit more
It's a
people.
little bit at a
Yeah,
time.
we
I'm
got
ready
this.
not to skip the
Yeah,
steps.
yeah, she got this. So you know what? She's good on this, but I'm still going to elevate her.
A little
I'm
bit,
still going to bless
a
her.
little bit.
Yeah,
And
and so that's the beauty of it when we know that, Lord, you still working on me. You got me on your potter's wheel, and you see that little niche in there. You put a little bit more water on it. You redo it again so it can be perfect when it comes off that wheel.
he said, in the valley, you learn how to deal with temptation. It teaches you how to protect your elevation. In the valley also helps you identify the enemy's tactics.
Yes.
Um, the valley
Hey,
keeps you
Brent.
humble.
Yes. Yes.
Hey, Brent, the valley keeps you humble.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Absolutely.
um, I literally, like, this, matter of fact, I'm not even done um, watching that entire video or that entire sermon because I fell asleep. I ain't gonna lie to you, I fell asleep. But let me see. In his process, there's fulfillment and joy. Oh, he said there's a difference between your authentic self and your adjusted self, which I thought was really, really. I'm like, okay, I know what my authentic self is, but I'm still learning
Um,
who my
it
adjusted
says
self is.
and Alan said we're in the fire, but God will not allow the fire to consume us.
Amen. That's right,
Absolutely,
Alan.
absolutely,
That's right.
absolutely.
That's
But
right.
I mean, like I just love when we can have our deep conversations, and I love when guests come on and have these awesome truths because
Yeah.
that's what I like to do. But before we close, I want to read a poem,
Okay.
and then you're going to give your words of encouragement. It's called a self-confidence. It says, "Fear of confrontation used to silence me. Self-love raised my voice. Fear of failure used to immobilize me. Self-love embodied me. Fear of judgment used to consume me. Self-love made me whole. Fear of abandonment used to anchor me. Self-love helped me set sail."
Mm,
And that's by Melody Godford.
that is a beautiful poem.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful poem.
Yes.
Um, in closing, I just want to say, people, really, you got to try to figure out, I guess, the root cause of why you people please, right?
Right.
And once you kind of figure that out, because again, it's a journey, okay? This is not something you're going to solve in a week or two, all right? Um, identify those people,
Mm-hmm.
place them accordingly, right?
Right.
Um, forgive yourself. Obviously, not just that. Also really figure out what, where you took part in this,
Absolutely.
right?
Accountability.
Take accountability. Then you got to forgive yourself.
Absolutely.
Again, easier. I'm saying this, but it's easy. It's not easy, right?
Not, not.
Forgiving yourself, and once you forgive yourself, you know, stay quiet, be still, listen
Yes.
to God's voice,
Yes.
because again,
Yes.
He's talking. We're just not.
Mm-hmm.
We're just not listening.
Too busy. All that
Too
background
busy.
noise.
All that noise. All that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Quiet, right? If you need to isolate yourself, it's cool. Because again, those that love you, they're
Don't
not.
love
They're
you.
gonna be there. Those that
Absolutely. Absolutely.
don't, they were never your people to begin with.
Never. Never.
And that is another reality, or truth that you're going to have to face, and it's not going to feel good either, right? Um,
No.
Identify your flaws, try to work on them. Um, oh God, Milo. Uh, and don't rush growth.
Don't rush growth.
Don't rush the growth.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna skip a step somewhere along the way, and then and as again, you could elevate and then come back down because you skipped a few steps. And I've realized that I don't want to elevate, because when I elevate, I don't want to come back down. So if I got to stay in the valley a little longer, whatever that time frame is,
Yes.
so be
Yes.
it.
So be it.
So be
Yes.
it. Don't um don't um I don't want to say don't care about what people think, but not really, because at the end of the day, it's what God thinks of you that matters the most.
Absolutely.
Um
Absolutely.
I There's so much, you guys. And it's okay to change who
It is.
you
It is.
were, who you were. Shit, who the fuck you were yesterday may not be the same today.
Yeah.
And do
Yes.
not let people try to keep you at yesterday.
Yes. Yes.
Don't let them keep you at yesterday, because keeping you at yesterday makes them feel comfortable and good about themselves. And, it gives them a reason to be mad at you or hate you or whatever. You know, you're allowed to change and you're allowed to evolve,
Yeah.
and it is going to make people uncomfortable. And again, those people were not your people to begin with. Milo Yancey!
He, he's like, I can't with y'all.
Child, when I tell you this dog is so, come here, come here. He is such a pain, but
That's your baby.
but really try to find that time for God. Really try to find that time and start slow, because again, I've had a lot of hot and cold relationships with him, and in my couple years of disobedience, I wasn't really listening, but he never stopped talking either, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, bring him back into your life, even if it's in small doses, at least, get to learn your God.
Absolutely.
Get to learn
Absolutely.
your God, because technically he's never changed. He's always been the same.
Same.
All
Yep.
this time, he's always been the same. Um, Obviously identify your mountain people and your valley people, because again, not everyone is, again, purview to see you naked. Remember, we always talk about being
Yes.
naked, right?
Absolutely.
um and
Absolutely.
and as you climb, you may not be able to bring all those people with you anyway. So
Absolutely.
um I
Absolutely.
think that's it for now. I don't
Yeah.
know, because I can go on and on about,
Yeah.
because again, I've been in such um I've been in such a mode of really being quiet, trying to listen, you know, and again, I think I mentioned this before. The level of obedience that's being required of me right now is big, and it's not comfortable. It really isn't comfortable. This week, and I tell you, I'm being tested this week. I'm being fucking tested this week. Let me tell you,
But you
and
yeah, you
and
got
I'm just like, okay, wait, what? Okay, so what am I supposed to do? I don't
right.
know, but he gave me the sermon for it. Let me tell you, he gave me the
And
sermon for it. So
he will
look,
do.
look,
And
look.
I can't tell you how proud I am of you. I can't tell you how I appreciate you just for who you are and just for the friendship that you and I have
Love you.
cultivated over the years. I love you too. And so I don't know if you have my book, but I'm giving this book to you.
You are
I'm giving this book to you.
somebody.
I'm giving this book to you, and so you just need to send me your address so I can autograph. Listen, if you guys would like a book, I get, just inbox me. I'll tell you how much it costs, and it'll be autographed. Or you can go on Amazon. Guys, let me tell you something. When we line ourselves up with what Christ wants us to do,
Mhm.
He will not withhold
Nope.
anything good from us.
Mhm.
He will not. I am a witness. Karina is a witness. A lot
Hey,
of you may can be a witness. If we line ourselves up with him, he will not hold anything that's good from us. But like she said, it takes obedience. You're not going to just get it like this. We'll
no.
fail, we'll come back. But you know what? The more we die to our flesh, the more obedient we can be to him.
Yes. Yes.
The more we can be obedient
Trust
to
me.
him. Listen, we love you guys. Thank you for
We love
hanging
you.
out with us. We
Yes.
don't never know when we're going to be back on here, but I will be back on next week. I'm going to have 4 guests on next week, so I got to figure out how I'm going to maneuver that. So, but I'm just super excited. I'm just super excited where God is taking me.
Same.
This weekend, Joni's doing her fashion show, No Heels to Heels,
Oh,
in
sold out,
Fayetteville.
I heard.
So out. Yes, yes, a phenomenal show. And then on the 19th, I will be going to South Carolina speaking at a women's event called I Am Enough. So I'm excited about that. And then on the 26th, I will be going to Charlotte speaking at another women's event. So
Look at
God is
God.
truly opening doors. So I'm just staying in my lane, let him drive my car and not worrying about anything
So
else.
on that note, and I will say this. So, and I don't remember what page is on, but he's in one of the sermons they said sometimes God will give one person the message, not the group. So
Right.
let's say you've been given the message and the message has been given to you so that you can pass it on to everybody else. And that's
Yes.
exactly what you're doing by having these speaking engagements. You are literally now passing whatever God has given you
Yes.
to deliver
Yes.
to the masses
Yes.
or to the amount of group of people that you're
Yes.
going to see.
Yes, yes, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. But yes, don't forget to send me your address so I can
I
send
will.
you your book out this weekend. I love you. I love you.
I love
Hey
you.
Jamez. So yeah, Jamez and his whole entourage is gonna be on here from Virginia. So we're gonna so listen, guys, he's coming on next week, but we're gonna be doing like a test run probably sometime next week because they're gonna be in 2 different places.
Oh,
So we're gonna get it done. We're gonna get it done. I can have 2 people on live, but they're gonna have to be 2 people gonna be here, 2 people gonna be there. So you guys look out for that next week. So
okay.
yes, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, but I love you,
I
sis.
love
Have an
you.
amazing weekend.
You
We
too.
got this.
We
We
got it.
got this. Bye. Love you. Guys, thank you, thank you, thank you for just tuning in to Hot Topics with Donna. Me and Karina, we always love to chop it up. We always allow ourselves to be honest, open, and transparent. And that's what we do here on Hot Topics. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, hey, just shoot me in my inbox. I'm super excited. Next week, Jamez is going to be on here. Oh yeah, it's on his birthday. So I'm super excited. So we're gonna be doing things a little different. It's gonna be 4 individuals that I will be interviewing at one time, but they're gonna be in different locations. So we're gonna be doing a test run maybe Sunday to make sure that everything's gonna work out. But guys, thank you, thank you, thank you for just coming in week after week. Like I said, I know a lot of you probably like she's don't come on Mondays and Tuesdays like she do. I'm used to. Guys, I'm still trying to be consistent, but right now God is really doing some amazing things in my life. Once I have completed all these things, you will know. I started my life coaching, so I wasn't on a Monday, so I'm completed that phase of my life. I am a certified life coach called Shape Life Lifing. So I'm working on building that business. But God has truly been amazing to me on this journey. And so I'm just thankful. Thank you for your love, support, your stars that you have sent me, my past, previous guests. So we're just going to keep doing it, but we can't do it without you. So with that being said, I hope you all have a great night. And like I said earlier, if you didn't get to see it, let's continue to pray for the victims of this hurricane because some people have truly lost everything. So let's not complain when we go to the store and we can't find, essential items like water, toiletries or whatever, because people are getting these things, sending them to where they need to get. Our school here in Moore County has a big U-Haul out in the front. We're getting our young people engaged to send, to donate supplies for these families and stuff. So guys, let's pray for them. They lost everything. We're still able to cut on our lights. Everything is still intact. So let's not complain. Oh, yes, we're always going to have fun, Jamez. But I love you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Be blessed. Stay safe. Good night. Bye.